Make up your mind, Microsoft. Elon Musk bets $1 billion on an AI nonprofit, and robot surgeons to the rescue. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 485 for Friday, December 11th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you all of the ingredients to cook fresh, delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. Welcome, I am Megan Maroney. Let's get to today's tech news. Last month, we told you that the Redmond company, Microsoft, had gone back on its promise of unlimited cloud storage. Of course, it is perfectly acceptable for a company to change its mind about an offer, but what stuck in people's craw was the reason they changed their mind. They were taking away the offer because people were taking them up on the offer. Now they've posted an apology of sorts as a response to the nearly 72,000 complaints posted on OneDrive's online suggestion box. But they are still taking away the unlimited storage. Office 365 users will be limited to 1 terabyte next year with a 12-month grace period for those with more than 1 terabyte stored. And they've limited the free storage plan to 5 gigabytes. Current OneDrive users can keep their 15 gigabyte base storage as well as their 15 gigabyte camera roll bonus as long as they claim that right by the end of January. And we have known for a while that Tesla and SpaceX founder Elon Musk is a little bit afraid of artificial intelligence. Today, Musk announced a $1 billion initiative aimed at making AI beneficial for all humanity without financial restraints. In an effort to keep large corporations from gaining too much power by hoarding troves of artificial intelligence systems, the results of research will be public and its patents will be royalty-free. The Open AI initiative is founded by Musk and Sam Altman, who is the founder and the president of Y Combinator. They have additional money from Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel, Amazon Web Services, and others. Earlier this week, we reported rumors that France was planning on blocking public Wi-Fi during states of emergency and possibly attempting to ban Tor all the time. I am happy to report today that those were just rumors. Ars Technica says France's Prime Minister Manuel Valls says he has never heard of such a request by the police. A ban of Wi-Fi is not a course of action envisaged. On Monday, we told you that Google had created a new entity called Verily, designed to use technology to create a true picture of human health. Today, the company announced that they are teaming up with Johnson & Johnson to create a new company that makes robots that do surgery. Verb Surgical will provide comprehensive surgical solutions that will incorporate leading-edge robotic capabilities and best-in-class medical device technology for operating room professionals. That, in case you didn't know, was from their PR piece. Verb Surgical will include robotic capabilities as well as medical devices for better access to healthcare, less invasive surgery, and greater hospital efficiency. Coming up, we will talk to Selena Larson about reporting on the latest startup demo day in an unlikely location. But first, this episode is brought to you by Blue Apron. Now, I know everything there is to know about robot babies, 3D printed body parts, and how Twitter works, but sadly, I do not know how to cook. But no worries, I have Blue Apron. For less than $10 per meal, Blue Apron delivers all the fresh ingredients you need to create home-cooked meals. Each meal can be prepared in 40 minutes or less. No matter your dietary preferences, Blue Apron makes it a breeze to discover and prepare dishes like sweet potato and collard greens hash with biscuits, sunny-side-up eggs and molasses butter, or spiced pork chops with charred poblano salsa and sweet potato mash. You do it all right in your own kitchen. Recipes are between 500 and 700 calories per portion. Right now, you can get your first 2 meals free just by going to blueapron.com/twit. Check out this week's menu and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. And we thank Blue Apron for their support of Tech News Tonight. Code 7370 is a coding and technical skills development program for incarcerated individuals. The coding classes are a partnership with a rehabilitation program called The Last Mile, and also with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation at San Quentin. They recently held a demo day to show off what they'd created, and our guest tonight was there. Welcome, Selena Larson from the Daily Dot.
Hi, and thanks so much for having me.
So I hope I got all that right. It's so, a lot of partners and partnerships, but did I get them right?
Yes, absolutely. You nailed it. It's the last mile, which has two different programs. They have an entrepreneurship and business program, as well as Code 7370, which is the programming course inside of San Quentin State Prison.
So, what are some of the apps that they showed off in the demo day?
So I talked to James Jones, and he built an app called Getting Parents' Attention, which is essentially helping student athletes keep track of their academic success, and gives parents and coaches a way to keep track of the student athlete and to kind of like gamify the GPA, essentially. There were a couple others, for instance, Healthy Hearts Institute, which is a startup. It's not actually an app, but it's a startup that works within low-income communities to try and improve the health within the communities. There was a fitness app that basically uses fitness to help addicts through recovery. And there was a Teen Tech Hub, which I also discussed in the story. Again, not an application, but a nonprofit startup partnership with the city of Richmond that is trying to get young people the skills that they need, technical skills that they need to be successful, that they're not getting taught in schools.
So, did you see a lot of the people that were there that were showing off the things that they created? Were they focused on Silicon Valley, like, you know, what are people going to buy, or were they more focused on their own communities that they'd come from?
That was actually something that was really interesting to me. So I've been to a lot of demo days and many startups. You know, you see it kind of has the same flow, right? Like you pitch your app, you take questions, or you demo it at the end. And everyone who participated in this demo day, all of the inmates, focused on problems that impacted them, their families, and their communities. So I thought it was really inspiring that you didn't see any food delivery startups or Uber for X among these inmates' applications or websites. It was all very much geared towards the problems facing their own communities. And a couple of them were nonprofits, and then there were some that were for-profit, obviously apps and companies. But a lot of the inmates that I talked to said, "Oh, I built this for my kid," or "When I was younger, I wish I would have had something like this." Or I named this one gentleman programmed a game that taught kids how to code, and he named it after his daughter, Riley. So it was really inspiring to see all of these ideas coming from people, incarcerated individuals, but wanting to give back to either their community or their peers or people that are impacted by these apps.
So 10 graduates of the Last Mile program have been released from prison. You spoke to one of them, James Houston. His first job out of prison was as an intern at a payment startup in San Francisco called Ribbon. Tell us a little bit about how he described his experience there.
Yeah, so one of the things that I thought was really funny was he talked a lot about how communication had changed a lot, and we joked a little bit about how, you Slack coworkers sitting right next to each other instead of just talking if you're, across the room or something.
They don't do that in prison, I guess.
Well, no, and he was incarcerated for 18 years, so you can imagine how much technology has changed. The way that we communicate has changed. Social media, as we know it today, did not exist. Even texting wasn't super prominent, right? I mean, he was incarcerated before mobile devices were, smartphones were everywhere. So that was one of the things that he talked a lot about, was just sort of the environment. But another thing that both James Houston and Horatio Hartz, who was another graduate who I spoke to, both of them said that the culture of technology itself wasn't super inclusive. They didn't feel like they belonged in the startup lifestyle. And despite all of the support that they received from the companies, who really tried to be inclusive and encouraging, and got to know them through the Last Mile project, and then offered them internships upon graduation or upon release from prison, they still felt like they were outsiders, not just because they were former inmates, but also because both of them were the only African Americans at their company. And frequently when they went to events, they were the only Black person in the room. And while the experience of being formerly incarcerated was unique to them, the experience of being the only African American person at a startup is not a problem that's unique to them. It's something that a lot of people experience in technology, as we've seen, with the diversity statistics released from big companies and small startups and the Valley. So eventually they ended up leaving their companies that they were working with and went to pursue their own endeavors. And James actually works at the city of Richmond. And so he gives back to his community in a number of ways, both through the city as a city employee and through the Teen Tech Hub, which he's hoping to finally get off the ground coming up here soon.
So you also mentioned a program called Turn to You. It was written up, I think, in USA Today. And it's an organization that lets prisoners earn $20 an hour for coding. When you did some research, what else did you find out about this program?
So there's not a whole lot of information that's available, and it is the same. It's the same, or the organization is run by the same folks that run The Last Mile. And while obviously there is hope that inmates learning to code in prison could eventually become programmers and coders and get paid for it and do work while they're incarcerated, there's no information readily available as of yet. So I'm not entirely sure. That's why I linked back to the USA Today piece, but there's not a whole lot of information that we know yet how this would actually work, who would be paying the inmates, what kind of work that they would be doing. And theoretically, upon graduation of the Code 7370 program, they would have the same skills as let's say somebody who went through a Learn to Code program, such as like General Assembly or something, that teaches these coding skills.
So these programs get a lot of funding. They get a lot of press attention. They get, MC Hammer is on the board. Mark Zuckerberg spoke to one of the classes. But how realistic, after you did all this research, how realistic do you think it is that these ex-cons will get their ideas funded or get jobs at startups or bigger tech companies?
So obviously it's hard for anyone, to be successful in the startup world, and automatically they're at a disadvantage because if you look at the data, VC funding is significantly less for people of color, especially African Americans. You look at the percentage of people who work in technology who are people of color, and you look at the history of funding these startups. But not only that. The stigma that comes with being previously incarcerated is very real, and it can have an impact on you and the company that you're working for. And one of the things that Ray mentioned was that, they feel like they're doing you a favor, like, oh, well, we're giving you a second chance. He's like, well, but when did we get our first chance, really? They don't truly understand the background and nurture the talents and really try to help folks and understand that people come from different backgrounds and all sorts of things. And it's a really interesting program. There, like I wrote and like you said, there is a lot of hype around these organizations, but just because somebody doesn't go work in technology or get their startup funded, which, by the way, none of the graduates from the Last Mile who have been released back into society have gotten funding for their projects. But despite that, there is a lot of good that comes out of it. For instance, one of the things that I talked about in my story was one of the inmates, his son started to learn to code and built a video game because he was inspired by his dad's work. So there are all these, factors at play here. And while it might not be directly affecting somebody, like they can graduate and leave prison and immediately get funded for their startup, there are these indirect results that are happening because of the time and effort that these groups and organizations are putting into teaching inmates to code. So it's really interesting and it's really great. And every single person that I talked to in the prison felt like they had a purpose and felt like they were learning a new skill that could benefit them once they leave. And if they're in there for life, if they're not leaving, there were a couple that I talked to who had life sentences and they were still going through the program because they feel like they have a purpose learning the skill and can teach others and just want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and you also talk about how they said the community that they learned there and built was amazing, and the description of what the two men that you followed, where they went to, and just felt better about the job that they were in. So yeah, thank you so much for writing this and doing all this research and for coming on. Selena Larson is a staff writer at the Daily Dot and at Selena Larson on Twitter.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
And finally tonight, why settle for sitting in first class with all the riffraff when you can sit in the bubble top for a price? Luxury magazine The Robb Report says that soon you can pass the time on long flights in a glass-enclosed sky deck installed at the top of the fuselage. Experience 360-degree views of the outside world in two comfortable seats that can be rotated to face in any direction. The bubble top will be built with the same materials used for supersonic fighter jets. For more information about when you can sit in the bubble top, go to windspeedtech.com. And that is it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. I always love your emails and your tweets. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Megan Maroney, and you can email me at megan@twit.tv. Brad from Ontario wrote yesterday, just wondering why sometimes it takes up to 2 days for Tech News Tonight and some of your other channels to get uploaded to iTunes in HD and made available for download and viewing. I asked around that isn't the way it's supposed to be. I think that he asked also, should I bother with iTunes or start watching on YouTube? Our engineers are looking into this. If anyone else has had that problem regularly, let me know, because I know you don't want tech news 2 nights from now. You want tech news tonight. So we'll take a look at it. And you can always watch our show on our website at twit.tv. You can watch, or you can get yourself a podcast catcher like Pocket Cast that supports HD video. You can find all the ways to subscribe to the show at twit.tv/TN2. You can write to us at TN2@twit.tv. And if you're around at 4 p.m. Pacific, you can watch live every weekday. And don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today, every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I will be hosting that show by myself until the end of the year, after which I will start hosting with Jason Howell. And we are very excited to bring you new tech news today. We want to make our forefathers, Mike Elgin and Tom Merritt, proud. I am Megan Maroney. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.